Meantime, just a few hours ago, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center resigned, saying he, quote, cannot in good conscience support President Trump's war with Iran. Joseph Kent says Iran posed no imminent threat to the U.S. He also blames, quote, pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby for this war. Now, President Trump nominated Kent to that position just last summer, and here is how the president reacted just moments ago.
I thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy.
Well, Kent's resignation comes as the Strait of Hormuz remains essentially closed, with U.S. allies and China rejecting President Trump's demand that they help secure it. At the same time, Iraq's oil minister says Baghdad is now talking with Iranian leaders to allow some of its oil tankers to move through. NewsNation's Brandt is live at the White House monitoring it all. Hannah, the president clearly frustrated with U.S. allies.
Nichole, that's right. And he expressed that frustration moments ago in the Oval Office, really slamming those NATO allies and saying he was very disappointed that they did not join the U.S. in this conflict. The president basically suggesting the U.S. was owed the help of these allies after all it's done to support NATO, arguing everyone agrees with the need to take on Iran. Take a listen to what the president said.
I was surprised to see that NATO, while they agreed that it was a very important thing to do, they agree fully. Nobody said, oh, you shouldn't do it. They would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month of when we had the B-2 bombers bomb the nuclear potential. I call it the nuclear dust. I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake.
Now, keep in mind that while the president was saying all of this, he was sitting right next to the Irish Prime Minister, who's here for a visit. So a bit of an uncomfortable situation there. Now, Ireland is not a member of NATO, but they aren't supporting this conflict with force. And the Irish leader actually did jump in to try and dial down the tone when President Trump was criticizing NATO allies, saying he agrees Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, and saying Ireland just wants to see peace in the Middle East as well. But he also defended Europe and specifically UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer after President Trump attacked him. Listen to what we heard from the Irish leader.
First of all, I think, notwithstanding what has happened, the transatlantic relationship between Europe and the US is very, very important on a number of fronts. And I think we've had issues over the last year or two, but we settled them. And Keir Starmer has done a lot to reset the Irish-British relationship. I just want to put that on the record.
But President Trump just went right back to criticizing NATO allies, really undeterred by the Irish leader's comments there. But I would also note it isn't just NATO allies pushing back. As you mentioned, Nichole, today we did see the first public criticism of the war from within the Trump administration, and that's significant. Joe Kent resigning as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, saying in his resignation letter he did not think Iran posed an imminent threat to the U.S., writing, as a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people. Now, President Trump did attack Kent there. He countered the claim that Iran did not pose a threat and said if the U.S. didn't attack Iran, they would have started a nuclear war, essentially telling reporters at the end of the day he was glad Kent is gone if he doesn't agree that Iran was a threat. Nichole?
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.